Imagine a place built from nothing. In the vast Oregon desert, a dream called Rajneeshpuram took root, a city promising spiritual enlightenment, freedom and love. But this utopia soon spiraled into paranoia, conflict and chaos. How did a movement for peace descend into darkness? The story of Rajneeshpuram holds a mirror to the fragile line between devotion and delusion. At the heart of this saga stood Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, a radical guru who fused Eastern mysticism with Western psychology. He encouraged followers to embrace life, wealth, and pleasure, breaking traditional norms. His luxury lifestyle and charisma drew thousands, but critics called him a manipulator. By his side was Ma Anand Sheela, his fierce and loyal lieutenant. Sheela enforced his vision with iron will, making the commune a global force. Together, their partnership would define the rise and fall of Rajneeshpuram. Before Oregon, there was Pune. In this bustling Indian city, Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh established his first major ashram in the 1970s. It was an international magnet for spiritual seekers, a vibrant and chaotic hub where thousands flocked to hear his daily discourses. He blended ancient wisdom with modern psychology, creating a unique spiritual path. His teachings were provocative. He encouraged his followers, known as sannyasins, to shatter their inhibitions through radical therapeutic techniques. This included dynamic meditation, a physically intense practice involving chaotic breathing, screaming, and dancing. The goal was catharsis, a total release of repressed emotions to clear the way for inner peace and silent awareness. The atmosphere in the Pune ashram was one of ecstatic freedom and intense experimentation. It was a place where Westerners, disillusioned with their own cultures, could explore new ways of living. They shed their old identities, received new Sanskrit names, and wore the signature colors of the movement shades of sunrise from orange to red to maroon. Bhagwan taught that spirituality did not require renouncing the world. Instead, he celebrated materialism, sex, and joy as valid paths to enlightenment. This philosophy was a stark departure from the asceticism of traditional Indian gurus, making him both wildly popular and deeply controversial in his home country. However, this paradise had its shadows. The therapies were often extreme, sometimes leading to emotional breakdowns or physical altercations. Rumors of sexual exploitation and psychological manipulation began to surface, painting a darker picture of life inside the ashram walls. The organization was growing rapidly, becoming a wealthy and powerful spiritual corporation. This attracted scrutiny from the Indian government, which grew increasingly wary of the ashram's activities and its leaders' growing influence. Tensions mounted, and the once welcoming environment began to feel strained. The dream that had started in Pune was beginning to show cracks under the pressure of its own success and controversy. By the late 1970s, it became clear that the movement had outgrown its Indian home. Bhagwan's health was also reportedly failing, providing another reason to seek a new location. The leadership, with Ma Anand Sheela at the forefront, started looking for a place where their vision could be fully realized without external interference. They needed a blank canvas, a vast and isolated space where they could build their utopia from the ground up, far from the prying eyes of disapproving authorities. The search began for a promised land, a place where the sannyasins could create a world entirely of their own making. Their gaze turned westward, toward the ultimate symbol of freedom and opportunity, America. The decision to move to America was strategic. For Bhagwan and his followers, the United States promised religious freedom, wealth, and a vast new stage. Ma Anand Sheela, educated in America, led the search for land, remote, vast, and full of promise. In Oregon's high desert, they found their answer, the Big Muddy Ranch. Followers arrived from around the world, united by a dream to build a new city and a new reality. The Big Muddy Ranch was an unforgiving piece of land in remote Oregon, arid, empty, and wild. To the sannyasins, this harsh landscape was an opportunity, a blank canvas for their dream. Here, they would build Rajneeshpuram, a city for a new consciousness. With faith and determination, they transformed the barren land at breathtaking speed. But as their city rose, a collision of cultures was set in motion. The Big Muddy Ranch became Rajneeshpuram almost overnight, a city rising from the Oregon desert through sheer determination. Sannyasins worked around the clock, building roads, drilling wells, and installing power lines to support thousands. Prefab homes, a medical clinic, a school, and even a shopping mall appeared in rapid succession. They built a dam, cultivated crops, and constructed an airport, aiming for total self-sufficiency. In under 3 years, a barren landscape was transformed into a bustling city, a testament to collective vision and effort. But as Rajneeshpuram flourished, the need for order and control grew, foreshadowing the challenges ahead. Life in Rajneeshpuram was a blend of hard work, meditation, and unwavering devotion to Bhagwan. Sannyasins surrendered personal identities, working long hours in roles assigned by leadership, all for the commune's good. Days began with meditation and ended with Bhagwan's discourses, reinforcing unity and purpose. The city thrived on efficiency and progressive ideals, but individuality was sacrificed for conformity. Personal possessions vanished, and strict schedules ruled daily life. The dream of freedom slowly gave way to rigid control and collective obedience. As Rajneeshpuram expanded, so did its obsession with security. The peace force patrolled the city, armed and ever-present, while surveillance cameras watched every corner. Residents monitored each other, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. Leadership led by Ma Anand Sheela justified these measures as protection from hostile outsiders. Dissent was equated with betrayal, and obedience became the price of belonging. The utopian promise faded, replaced by a tightly controlled, watchful society. Just miles from Rajneeshpuram, the tiny town of Antelope faced a cultural invasion. Sannyasins bought property and attended town meetings, unsettling longtime residents. Locals saw it as a hostile takeover. Sannyasins claimed their legal rights. Mistrust and paranoia grew, turning council meetings into battlegrounds. Media coverage fueled the conflict, framing it as a David versus Goliath struggle. The stage was set for a political showdown that would capture national attention. The conflict spilled into Wasco County, where Rajneeshis sought political power. To secure their city's future, their organized voter drive threatened to tip the balance in local elections, alarming longtime residents. The battle became a fight for the county's identity, tradition versus radical change. Both sides mobilized, rhetoric intensified, and the stakes soared. For the Rajneeshis, victory meant legitimacy. For their opponents, it was a fight for survival. The dream of utopia was now entangled in a bitter political war. The Rajneeshis' first major victory came in Antelope, Oregon. After months of tension, they used their voting power to take over the town council. The original residents watched in disbelief as the town was swiftly renamed Rajneesh. This was more than a political win, it was a cultural takeover. For Oregon, it was a chilling sign. The Rajneeshis were here to stay, and they knew how to win. The Rajneeshi victory in Antelope emboldened their leadership and alarmed locals. With Wasco County elections looming, the stakes soared. Control meant legitimizing their city and survival for their utopian project. Opposition fought back with lawsuits and strict residency checks, while the Rajneeshis accused officials of discrimination. As defeat loomed, the leadership strategy turned dark, shifting from winning votes to suppressing their opponents. The seeds of a criminal conspiracy were sown, leading to an unprecedented act of domestic terrorism. As the 1984 county election neared, Rajneeshpuram's leaders faced defeat. Their solution? The Share a Home program, welcoming thousands of homeless people not out of charity, but to swell voter rolls and secure power. On the surface, it looked like compassion. In reality, it was a calculated move, weaponizing desperation for political gain. The Share a Home program was not an act of love, it was an act of war, and the homeless were its unwitting soldiers. With the plan in place, the Rajneeshi organization swung into action with its characteristic efficiency. They dispatched recruiters to homeless shelters, soup kitchens, and skid row districts in major cities across the United States. These recruiters offered a tempting proposition, a one-way bus ticket to a beautiful community in Oregon where food, housing, and a warm welcome awaited. To people living in desperate circumstances, the offer was, honestly, irresistible. It sounded like a lifeline, a chance to escape the harsh realities of the streets for a peaceful, caring sanctuary. Thousands accepted the offer, boarding chartered buses for the long journey to the remote desert city of Rajneeshpuram. Upon arrival, the new residents were greeted with a well-organized reception. They were given food, clean clothes, and assigned a place to live in temporary shelters. At first, the commune made a genuine effort to integrate them. They were offered jobs within the community and encouraged to participate in daily life. However, it quickly became apparent that the primary objective was political. The new arrivals were immediately taken to voter registration tables, where sannyasins helped them fill out the necessary forms to become official Wasco County voters. The entire operation was a massive, assembly line process designed to convert human beings into ballots as quickly as possible. The cultural clash between the new arrivals and the existing sannyasin community was immediate and honestly pretty severe. The sannyasins were largely educated, middle-class individuals committed to a disciplined spiritual path. The homeless population, many of whom struggled with mental illness, addiction, and the deep trauma of poverty, did not fit into this rigid, controlled environment. Fights broke out, and the commune's resources were strained. The leadership's solution was to heavily sedate many of the new arrivals with Haldol, a powerful antipsychotic drug, which was often mixed into their beer at the community's bar to keep them docile and manageable. The humanitarian dream had devolved into a drugged and chaotic nightmare. As the election neared, it became clear that the scheme was failing. County officials, led by Clerk Sue Pro Lacey, were meticulously vetting the new registrations, invalidating many of them. Realizing their plan would not succeed, the Rajneeshi leadership decided to abruptly abandon it. The homeless individuals they had lured with promises of a new life were now seen as a liability. They were rounded up, put back on buses and unceremoniously dumped in nearby towns like Madras and Redmond, with no money and no way to return to the cities they came from. The charitable facade had crumbled completely, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and human wreckage. The collapse of the Share a Home program was more than a political failure. It was a moral catastrophe that exposed the rot at the core of the Rajneesh leadership. Luring thousands of vulnerable people for political gain, then discarding them, marked a complete abandonment of ethical principles. This was a point of no return, where the pursuit of power eclipsed any semblance of humanity or spiritual integrity. The unwavering faith of the followers began to show its first significant cracks. State and federal authorities now saw the Rajneeshis as a clear threat to public order. The homeless voter scheme was a critical step on the path to Rajneeshpuram's final downfall. The ethical collapse was not the end but a prelude to an even darker chapter. While Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh was the silent spiritual center, it was Ma Anand Sheela who became his public voice and absolute authority. As his secretary, Sheela controlled access, policy, and the daily life of the commune. Her fierce press conferences and confrontational style made her both captivating and feared. She was the iron fist in the velvet glove, ruling with unquestioned power. All information flowed through her. Sheela shaped the narrative, controlled the commune, and protected Bhagwan's utopian dream. As conflict with the outside world grew, paranoia took hold inside Rajneeshpuram. Sheela and the leadership fostered an us-versus-them mentality, reinforced by newspapers, radio, and public pronouncements. Surveillance in the peace force became constant, while sannyasins were encouraged to spy on each other. Fear and suspicion replaced trust, turning the utopia into a psychological prison. Paranoia now poisoned the heart of the community, setting the stage for secret conspiracies. At the apex of Rajneeshpuram's paranoia was Ma Anand Sheela's inner circle, a tight group of trusted lieutenants, mostly women, who controlled finance, security, and more. Bound by secrecy and loyalty, they blurred the line between protection and criminality, obsessed with rooting out enemies within. Wiretaps, surveillance, and plots against rivals became routine. As the world watched, the real danger was the cult's inner circle, driven by fear, loyalty, and a thirst for control. As the November 1984 Wasco County election loomed, Rajneeshpuram's leaders faced defeat. Their plan to import voters had failed, and officials were rejecting their registrations. Desperate, Sheela's inner circle shifted from winning votes to suppressing them, plotting to make the Dal's residents too sick to vote. This ruthless plan, born of paranoia and secrecy, would become the largest bioterror attack in American history. The fall of their utopia was about to begin. The inner circle needed a weapon that was effective, widespread, and impossible to trace. Their focus quickly narrowed to biological agents. Sannyasin Dayano Nang, known as Ma Anand Puja, ordered Salmonella typhimurium, a bacterium causing severe food poisoning. In Rajneeshpuram's sophisticated lab, Puja and her team grew vast quantities, creating a potent invisible weapon. It was easy to transport and would leave victims too sick to vote, while appearing to be a natural outbreak. The perfect invisible weapon, ready to be unleashed on an unsuspecting public. In the fall of 1984, just before the election, members of Sheela's inner circle secretly poisoned salad bars in the Dalles, Oregon, with salmonella. Hundreds fell violently ill, overwhelming local hospitals and shattering the community's sense of safety. It remains the largest bioterrorist attack in U.S. history, but the town responded with record voter turnout, defeating the Rajneesh candidates and refusing to be intimidated. The failed bioterrorism plot marked the beginning of the end for Rajneeshpuram. Bhagwan broke his silence, accusing Sheela and her circle of crimes. Sheela fled, leaving chaos and confusion. Investigators uncovered evidence of poisoning, wiretapping, and illegal weapons. Sheela and her followers were arrested. The dream of Rajneeshpuram collapsed, leaving only ruins in the Oregon desert. With the deportation of Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh and the imprisonment of Ma Anand Sheela, Rajneeshpuram's grand experiment ended overnight. The city emptied, its followers scattered, leaving behind a ghost town in the Oregon desert. The dream of a utopia collapsed into ruin, its assets sold, its name erased from the map. Antelope reclaimed its name, and the land became the Big Muddy Ranch once more. Today, only ruins and memories remain, a haunting reminder of how quickly a dream can vanish. The story of Rajneeshpuram is more than a sensational cult tale. It's a powerful lesson in the dangers of unchecked power and blind devotion. A spiritual quest became a paranoid police state, blurring the line between faith and fanaticism. Rajneeshpuram's legacy warns us, the search for meaning can be twisted, and the brightest visions can cast the darkest shadows.